Hey, it's Dr. K. I'm a California licensed naturopathic doctor and certified sacred medicine woman. Welcome to the Divine Woman Wellness Podcast. This is a show about whole body wellness that is going to support you in finding alignment with your body, mind, and spirit. I believe every woman should have a deeper understanding of her body and soul, and my mission on this show is to guide you through learning about your body, how you can shift your day-to-day life to support health and wellness while connecting to yourself on a deeper level. These episodes are rooted in naturopathic medicine, vitalism, biohacking, and mysticism, and will guide you towards well-being in body, mind, and soul. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. All right, my loves, welcome to another episode of Divine Woman Wellness, the podcast. And I'm your host, Dr. K, and I'm so excited to be talking to you today. So, I've actually outlined, I think, about 4 episodes trying to decide which one to bring to you next. And really, what's been coming through for me all week is just speak from the heart. So, this episode 100% unscripted, and we're just in a state of flow today, and I think that's just what wants to flow through. So here we are. So this was my birthday week, and yay, happy birthday to me. It's been a fabulous week, actually. And one of the things that really strongly came through for me is that this was one of the best birthdays I've had. And not to say that the other birthdays weren't good, but this just had such a different essence around it. And I reflected on, well, why was that? Because I really didn't do a whole lot. I kept it really simple. There was some basic self care. I had an amazing massage with one of my favorite masseuses. I had a beautiful lunch date. And I spent some time with my best friend the afternoon, and I hung out with more friends in the evening at the pool. And so it seems like such a simple day. And for me to reflect back and say, wow, that was really one of the best birthdays I've had in a long time, and really even just best days, it's definitely interesting. So reflecting back, something that I've been working on, I think now for the past long while, but that's finally started sinking in, and I've been taking some huge steps in, yeah, like leaps and bounds, like really making progress, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, is that self-care thing. And not just self-care as in actually taking care of myself, but the self-nurturance. And I heard this somewhere on another podcast today, self-nurturing, which I really love so much better than self-care. And I think it was actually Natalia Benson who said it. And it just rung so true to me. And it all kind of snapped into place. So what I mean is, we're told do self-care, do the meditation, do this, that, and the other to truly care for your body, put nutrients in, so on and so forth. And we kind of go through the motions, and we may or may not fully integrate it. And I've been meditating now almost every day for close to a year, and I am really, really proud of myself for that accomplishment. And then in the last few months, I've shifted that meditation practice to utilize the Ziva meditation technique, which I've talked to you about before, which I absolutely love. I've started meditating 2 times a day instead of just 1 time a day, and that's also made a difference. But really, I've been making a concerted effort to make sure that my cup is full from the beginning. And that's an everyday practice. And I'm not perfect. It doesn't happen every day. Don't let me fool you. But that's my goal. My goal is to get to a place where every day the cup is full before I really step into the world and take on more. And especially as a healthcare practitioner or somebody who gives most of the day, as a parent even, right? It is so important to have that oxygen mask on yourself. And there's that whole episode dedicated to it. But I think I wanted to take it another step further because it's made such a big difference for me in just my feeling of wellness and gratitude. And this is where the whole body medicine comes in and more of the spiritual practice, the mysticism. It's really taking a whole person approach instead of, oh, I'm doing this to regulate my nervous system, or, oh, I'm doing this solely as a spiritual practice. It really is a whole person approach. And that's really what just wanted to come through today. So what I've come to conclude is that even though it's funny, I had this great birthday and my cup was full, and then I went a few days where I noticed I was pushing it a little bit. I wasn't having a regular eating cycle. My sleep was okay, maybe getting to bed a little bit later because I have some more flexibility in my life right now. And by a little bit later, I mean like 10 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock. With the occasional late nights, it's okay to stay up. But that being said, it's practice. Life is practice, right? And practice, there's that saying, practice makes perfect. It really doesn't. Practice makes practice, and practice makes people. We're humans, and yeah, we're humans. I think I'll leave it at that. So why after put the oxygen mask on yourself, making sure I've talked about self-care, why am I circling back to this one more time? And I think it's because it goes further than just having a regular meditation practice, having that regular eat sleep cycle, making sure the foundations are set in your life, those non-negotiables, but it goes further. It goes to the reason about why. Why are we having those practices in place? Is this a means to an end? So, why am I doing this? And for me, the why has shifted, especially recently. Previously, it was mostly why because I know that it's good for me, which probably is a good reason to start. But really, it's because that is part of what we're here to do, right? Is life only gets hard when we forget to play. And understanding from such a visceral standpoint that we're human beings, not human doings. And I think that word exists for such a good reason to bring some insight into where we are in our evolution as a species. We are becoming, we are being, and more people, I think, are waking up nowadays to understand that I'm not just doing these practices to optimize myself so I can give more of myself, but rather so I can actually be a fulfilled human and actually find that soul purpose alignment. There's been so much growth that's been happening for me, even in the last few months. I've been working with this absolutely wonderful coach, Carrie Kugler. And yes, I hired her as my business coach, but it's just my life has transformed so much because she's helped me with the implementation of a lot of the things that I already knew. And then, of course, she's added to that, to those things that I already knew, and has given me some more nuggets and techniques that I can then implement. So going back to why was his birthday one of the best birthdays, I gifted myself a massage with my favorite masseuse, as I already mentioned. And normally when I gift myself something like that, I have a lot of guilt around the finances around it. Like, oh, how dare I spend so much money on myself, and how frivolous of me, and do I really need it? And I usually end up waiting until like things are screaming level 9 out of 10 before I go in for a massage or an adjustment, which you probably wouldn't expect from somebody like me who tells most of my patients to do this on a regular basis. And I openly admit I am not my own best patient. Do as I say, not as I do. I don't always lead by good example. Although making a much more concerted effort to lead by good example, because honestly, I can't take anybody to places I haven't been. And so the mindset shift around how I approach this gift to myself of self-care, self-nurturance was the fact that I gifted it to myself because it came from a place of love and gratitude and true nurturance, not okay, well, I'm falling apart. I got to do something. And yes, I have to invest this money. And, kind of going down the negative thought spirals a little bit to actually just saying, like, you know what? I'm a human being and I get to celebrate myself and I get to love on myself a little bit, and that's okay. And I don't have to accept anybody else's judgment. And why am I throwing so much judgment on myself when, let's face it, I'm probably the only one that's judging myself about this. So I've learned to release that, and I think that truly shifted how I accepted the gift of self-nurturance, which I hadn't truly appreciated in the past. And I work with a lot of patients too that are concerned about, oh, do I really have to spend this much money? I've already spent this much on other supplements, or I've been on this health journey for so many years. And it's not about the money that has to be spent. There's no money has to be spent to get better. It's, are you worth it to yourself? I think that's really the deeper core question. And I can't, and I will obviously not force anybody to purchase supplements or to do therapies or to have treatments that are not in alignment with themselves, or that I wouldn't think are absolutely beneficial to their well-being. So it's taking an approach, or taking a look at where and when do my patients start making progress. It's sometimes when they start saying, like, okay, you know what, I've had enough of penny pinching and buying the cheaper supplements. I am going to be all in, 100% in, and this is a non-negotiable. My health has become a non-negotiable. And that's, again, that's kind of very similar to how I felt about my birthday and how I received it. And, same thing for me with supplements. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, these are so expensive. And I'm very particular about the brands that I put in my body, because there is so much concern about now ground cross contamination, brands not being who and what they say they are, or putting what they say actually is in the supplement. And so, anyways, so sometimes it gets pretty expensive, especially when you're eating all organic and you're avoiding all these chemicals and you're only buying organic cotton clothing, and it adds up, right? And then the house filter, and then the filter for the kitchen, and then the correct pots and pans. Oh me, oh my, right? It can get out of hand really quickly. But I guess the point I'm trying to make, or one of the points I'm trying to make, is let's make sure we're not making fear-based decisions, and we're making, especially financial decisions and health decisions, should never be fear-based. They should be anchored and grounded in choices that we have, right? We get to have that choice of what we're going to do for ourselves. And when I look at how many patients I've worked with in the past who really haven't made the investment in themselves. Like, yes, they'll pay for the visits barely, or they'll skip the visits, or they will drag it out and come back 8 months later and say, like, well, I haven't gotten any better. And I ask, well, did you take any of the supplements? No, but I bought these other things because they were way cheaper and on sale, and it was buy two get one free, or whatever it was. And I wouldn't expect them to get better because the investment wasn't there. The time investment, and it's not a financial investment per se, but the recognition of, you are worth it. This is for you. Um, like, you're doing this out of love, and don't skimp on loving yourself. Really, maybe that's the message here. Is give yourself completely from a place of overflow, whatever it may be. Now, I'm not saying go freaking $20,000 in debt because you're going to some retreat for, 5 weeks that promises to be the heal all. I mean, maybe that's the right thing. And please take me with you. Everybody needs a doctor at a retreat. Um, but that being said, let's be sensible about it. If you are seeing a naturopathic doctor, or if you're seeing any doctor and they make recommendations, we make recommendations for reasons, whether that's brand specific, dosing specificities, duration, or when to follow up. Those are all to serve you and your well-being, and for you to get better. So if you're having a hard time investing, or you feel guilty about, oh, I have to pay this much money for my supplements, that's going to impact how much better you're going to get. Again, it's not saying or normalizing, like, hey, it's spend $1,000 on your supplements and you'll get better, but rather it's trusting the process and either being fully in or being fully out. And if you don't feel like you're fully in, maybe maybe this isn't the right time or the right next step. And you say, like, okay, well, I understand this is going to be a little bit of a costly endeavor. So why don't I start putting away a little bit of money every month? Or instead of buying my Starbucks coffee every morning, which I don't know, somewhere around $5+ nowadays. I mean, that's $150 a month. Did I do the math right on that? But anyways, that's a couple of supplements. I mean, I've had protocols that were about that or less. And, what are the choices that we're making? And really, if you were a patient in front of me, and, I actually had a patient this morning, it was so interesting. He asked me very blatantly, and I really appreciated that question. He's like, this isn't just a ploy to get me to buy a bunch of expensive supplements. And at first, I was a little shocked. I was like, you know what? That is such a valid question because I've definitely seen it. And sometimes I'm like, wow, that's really sus because we're taking so many supplements. And if we take a step back, are all those supplements even going to be absorbed? Do they actually work in a synergistic approach? And, it definitely can happen. Like we get a little supplement happy. And what I try to do is I really look at the supplements that I recommend and like, are they actually necessary? And sometimes there are optional supplements. There's tiers in supplementation. Okay, this is the top tier. This is kind of like your Cadillac or Ferrari with all the bells and whistles. And if that's not within your budget, may it get you better a little bit faster? Yes. Does it support the body in some additional ways? Yes. Is that absolutely necessary? Maybe not. So I always have that conversation with my patients. Like, does this seem doable either from a quantity standpoint, like how many supplements am I really taking in a day, or from a financial standpoint? And if my patients are generally pretty honest with me and they're like, hey, Dr. K, that is outside of my budget and that's going to increase my stress, then the amount of stress that gets put out in trying to take care of themselves is more harmful than the good that the supplements would be doing. So we go back to the drawing board and say like, okay, well, what is the bare bones? Like what's the Toyota Corolla that gets us to and from work? Like what runs safely and gets the job done? And sometimes that's where we have to start. And if it's just going to give you a little bit more energy, that's fine. But making sure you have that communication. And I definitely work with patients that are very low income and, they don't have extra income, but they're still able to make it work because they are committed to themselves. And when I see that my low income patients are committed to the plan and they buy the supplements, even if it's a little bit of a stretch and they're getting better, then I look at other patients who are very affluent and yet they're frustrated about the cost of the supplements. And even if it's whittled down to the bare bones kind of treatment plan, it's like, okay, well, I don't have a magic pill. And if abundance comes in many ways. And sometimes it's the gratitude, the love, the nourishment, the commitment to ourselves that really is the biggest abundance. Because you can have all the money in the world if you're not willing to take care of yourself and use those funds. Why? What's the point? What is the point? Backing up a little bit to that patient that was in my office today, we had a conversation around it. It's like, are all these supplements absolutely necessary? I mean, they're going to help you. And I put this plan together with a lot of care and thought because I, as a clinical practitioner, from my experience, have garnered that these supplements and this approach is going to get you better faster. So it's really up to you. Can we dial it back? Yes. Am I doing this for the money from the supplements? No, I could care less. Like, just go get better. If I could give people free supplements, I would, and I wouldn't change my treatment plan. And that's something I like to check myself on too, is would I do anything differently if it was my own family? Or, like with ordering labs, something that I can an actionable item. So is this something that's going to move the needle forward? Whether that's a supplement, a test, a procedure, those are the questions I ask myself when I put together a treatment plan or a recommendation for my patients. Will this move the needle forward? And I always start with diet and lifestyle. And that's what I stress to my patient too. It's during most of the visit, we discussed the importance of certain diet and lifestyle changes, and that was the foundation. The supplements really were secondary. And I even made mention that if you took no supplements, eventually you may get better. Now, with infections, it's a little bit harder for the body to get better just off of diet and lifestyle. Is it possible? Maybe. It's just going to take a really long time. And if you're really tired of being sick and tired, you might not want to wait that much longer. So it's really a choice in the end of how fast you want to get better, and do you want to increase the likelihood of getting better, is the real question. And now backing up to, well, what the heck does this have to do with it being my birthday week and with it relating to self-care, self-nurturance, and giving from a place of overflow? To tie it back to where I was going before I took a little tangent here is actually the fact that, yes, I've been doing a lot of self-care. I've been really focused about filling my cup up, and that's been really nice. But in the last few weeks, I will say that has been a much higher priority, making sure I have that regular eat sleep cycle. And the eat cycle is the one that, vanishes for me first. My sleep is very, very sacred. I don't allow that to budge very often. I do because I would like to have fun in life, right? So it's important to live in reality, not in perfect land. So making sure we stay grounded and anchored in the here and the now. But I do notice how much better, not just my body and brain function, but psycho-emotionally, how much better I feel when my cup is full. So I'm not a big early breakfast person, and that makes it really hard with, the time that I have to take my kids to school, walk the dog, and then get to work. I'm not hungry. I'm not hungry during that time. And that's been something that I've probably been grappling with for most of my career. Most of my adult life is planning in breakfast. And it's something that I think is really important. And I would say if you have to skip a meal, skip a dinner, especially if it's late. Never skip a breakfast. But for some people, brunch is a lot more appealing than an early breakfast. So making concessions, and this is where something like a hormone balancing smoothie comes in, especially in the summer months, that's a lot nicer, or making sure I plan in a break between patients so I can actually nourish myself, so I can give from that place of overflow and not run into a place of where my tank is really, really empty. Can I function? Yes. Do I feel great in some ways? Yes. I'm on ketosis. I'm high on ketones. I feel fabulous. My brain is like rose-colored glasses. But that moment before I transition, or let's say the few hours as I'm transitioning into true ketosis and my blood glucose is a little low, man, I'm like Space Cadet. It's like, wee. It's the ADD is worse. A little bit sideways. I could just feel a little bit more frazzled, probably because my cortisol is high, because low blood sugar will raise your cortisol because that is a stress response. And cortisol releases blood sugar releases glucose from the liver into the bloodstream to nourish the brain. So during that transition period, yeah, a little rocky. Once I'm in ketosis, smooth sailing. I feel fabulous. I can skip the next couple of meals. Don't do that, people. Do not do that. Just because it feels temporarily good doesn't mean it's actually good for your body. Now, controlled fasting is, and it can be very therapeutic, especially because of autophagy. Now, finding that regular eat-sleep balance is super important, or eat-sleep cycle is super important, because we do not want our adrenals in a fight or flight stage, right? We do not want that cortisol flying sky high in the middle of the day having a stress response, especially when it comes to nutrition and nutritional intake. We want it to be either plan for something that is going to keep you in ketosis but is nourishing, so you at least do not have that cortisol response, or make your lifestyle work around your eating schedule. Yes, that's still a work in progress for me, but I'm just going to throw it out there. If you're not an early breakfast person, consider taking a break at work and maybe having your lunch really early. I will say, like, my happy time to eat is somewhere around 9:30, 10 o'clock. That's when my body does best with nutrient intake. Okay, so great. I got to figure that out. Um, but again, making sure the foundations are in place, that regular eat sleep cycle, making sure I put good nutrients in my body, not just a quick bowl of muesli, which is a German thing. It's basically oats with raisins, some nuts, and it's super simple. And some days I absolutely love it and my heart calls for it. And I think it's from an emotional point because it makes me feel like home because I am from Germany. So that's something good. I love that occasionally, but lately I've been doing it more often and it does not fill my cup. Breakfast should be high protein, high fat, micronutrients, right? You want to get most of your nutrients in early in the day. So that's a place that I am calling myself out. Hasn't been really where it needs to be to optimize my well being. So, back to giving or coming from a place of overflow, filling my cup up. Why was this birthday so different? Because I have released the guilt around taking care of myself. I think that's really the conclusion that I've come to is any of the guilt that's associated with it, whether that is the time I'm spending to go down to see my acupuncturist and actually relaxing during the session, not thinking about, oh, my kids are home with the sitter and they're missing me and yada, yada, yada. Um, Let go of mom guilt. It serves nobody. So, releasing guilt in the genre of self nurturance. Actually just indulge. And once you make that transformation from feeling guilty about the self care practices, and of course, making sure they're coming from a place of self love, then the self care practices you implement start feeling so much more nourishing because they truly are coming from a place of love, abundance, and overflow, and beauty. And even though I haven't done that much more or that much different, it feels so different. So, if there's one message here, it's that release the guilt of the self care. And whether that is the financial guilt about having to spend money on supplements or the ask of the waiter at the restaurant that, can you please make sure this is gluten free? Because, yes, I'm very sensitive, it's an allergy. Or people going out of their way to accommodate your health needs. That's okay. If they truly care, they will accommodate. And you should not feel guilty for respecting your body and your needs. And that is so important for people to understand. I do a lot of counseling and coaching around how to make it okay and even go out with your friends and have a good time and still adhere to the personal boundaries about health. You know, a lot of patients are like, oh, I can't do XYZ protocol because I like to go out for mimosas with my friends on Sundays. I'm totally making it up. But similar scenarios come up a lot in my practice. And it's like, okay, well, maybe instead of mimosas on Sundays, can we do mocktails on Sundays? And everybody comes up with a different recipe that is delightful, tasty, and refreshing, but is non alcoholic and fits within like a maybe low sugar standpoint, because usually I'm having people avoid alcohol if we're treating their gut. And that also means avoiding high sugar content, right? There's so many delicious mocktails that, like, who needs the alcohol because it's just delicious. So again, if your friend group truly cares, if your family truly cares, nobody's going to judge you or guilt you about you taking care of yourself. And the thing that I've learned to look at for myself in making choices is, would I want to see my daughters doing what I'm doing? Whether that's a behavior, a food I'm eating, an action I'm doing, um, whatever it is in life, whether even in a relationship, is this something that I would want to see my daughters doing or in or navigating? And if the answer is no, then great. Hands off, change my ways. I certainly wouldn't want to see my daughters going without food until 3 something in the afternoon because it was, quote, inconvenient to plan time to eat breakfast, brunch, lunch, whatever you want to call it. And so, it's like, okay, great. So if If I was my own child, and I guess this is called reparenting nowadays, if I was my own child, how would I navigate that, right? We would brainstorm. If I were my own patient, we would brainstorm. We would think like, okay, well, how can we have our cake and eat it too? I make delicious gluten-free, dairy-free, very low sugar cakes, by the way. Check out my other Instagram. It's one of my fun passions. Maybe because I love that saying so much, is have your cake and eat it too. Really have the joy in life, right? I don't want to take the joy out of anybody's life. We just need to find a different way to have the joy in life. When we can release the guilt of asks about our health and taking care of ourselves, then everything changes. Life becomes, it's like rose colored glasses in a way. It's like, wee, beautiful. It's just lovely. It's amazing. And it feels so good. And I don't even know how to describe it, but there is just, it's like nurturance in the air. It's like the air is nutritious and a warm, lovely hug all in one. And that's the big shift that I realized for my birthday this year, is that I let go of the guilt of self-care, and therefore the few things I was doing for myself felt so much more nourishing. And I stood my grounds and my boundaries and all these personal development things that I've been working on in the past many, many years. Lifetime, maybe more lifetimes, TBD, haven't had that regression yet. So, what am I trying to say? You come first. It feels so, so, so good. And, it's like that feeling of the sunshine when it's warm and cozy. You're just basking in the sun, and that warm summer breeze just kind of blows across your face. That's what this feels like. That is that feeling. It's like juicy luxury, which is so simple. It's so simple. I just came from a place of non-judgment and no guilt and just pure acceptance of myself and honoring my needs in the moment. I'm going to leave that with you. So, when it comes to your health, your mental health is just as important as your physiological health and your physical health, which are slightly different, but it's everything. Mind, body, spirit. And that's one of the reasons why I named my podcast Divine Woman Wellness, because it's all encompassing. It's not just one thing, it's everything. Whether that's finding a spiritual practice that suits you, whatever that might be, whether that is diving deep into the mysticism, and if that feels good, great. Or looking into the physiology, the biohacking component, all of it has a place. All of it is healthcare. All of it is wellness, right? That is so important for us to recognize, that health is not just the lab values we look at and the fact that you feel like you're energized and you have a flat tummy or that you're having regular bowel movements. Yes, those are signs of health, and that's great. But a lot of times there's more to it. Okay. So, to wrap this longer episode, this unscripted episode up, let's recap. So, the most important thing that I can offer you for today is let go of the guilt, especially as it comes to self-care, self-nurturance. Let go of any guilt associated with the wonderful things that you were doing for yourself and your body. Your family will be fine. You will be fine. Your wallet will be fine. It's okay. Make the choice. And if it doesn't feel right for whatever reason, then don't do it. Then that might not be the right thing. But don't do anything with guilt looming over a self-care practice, whether that is taking the 15 minutes to meditate, the 15 minutes to journal, going to exercise, or buying groceries that you love, or even making food that you love. Even if nobody else is going to eat it in the house, that's okay. And don't be guilty about it. Make that thing that you love. Do the thing that you love and let it come from a place of love, not from a place of shame and guilt. All right, and I have to give a super awesome shout out to Nikki from Nikki in Solana Beach. I gifted myself these beautiful earrings, and if you're watching the video, you can kind of see them. They got some pearls and sparklies and little crystals at the end. I've worn them every day since my birthday, and I absolutely love them. They have such good energy. And Nikki is on Instagram as well. I'll try to make sure and link her down below just because she has so many beautiful things in her store. And I love her mom, Diana, who I talk to so often at her store. So just my shout out to those two beautiful women who really do make the world a better place and a more beautiful place. So I am so honored to be wearing these earrings, and yeah, I will try to post some pictures with them as well. So if you're not watching the video, you can still get to see them because they're absolutely beautiful, and I'm just in love with them now. So with that, my loves, today it's a wrap. So remember to go nurture yourself from a place of love and overflow, because really to fill up our cups to a place of overflow, what we give has to come from a place of overflow. Make sure to go ahead and give me a follow here on iTunes or Spotify, and then head on over to Instagram. Make sure you follow divine_woman_wellness.